Hello, YouTube. Welcome to my channel, Marriage, Politics, and Sports. Here we are again. It's been a long time since I've gone live. Well, I've caught up with Karoline Leavitt on Fox News, and we're going to talk a little bit about fraud. But before we get there, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Share this stuff because I know a lot of people out there, a few people out there like these lives. But, hit the like button when you come in, even if it's only for a little while. But the real point is, hey, listen, as taxpayers, aren't you tired? I don't, forget about political affiliations for a second. Aren't you tired? I mean, this is the new year, and has your taxes gone up in almost everything? Forget about the groceries and all this other shit, that we argue about. The people we put in charge to govern the money have dropped the ball. And it's not by accident. There's so much chaos out there that, they're robbing us blind. The Somalis are just a symptom to a larger issue of fraud. It's just their turn in front of the congregation. And the thing that makes it worse is that they're arrogant people. They're very arrogant about it, and they're unapologetic to what they're doing to the American taxpayer. But the people of Minnesota and the leaders that they put in charge seem to don't care about being useful idiots and placating because they hate Trump or they hate the Republicans. They're allowing the citizens, the 3 or 4 million citizens, mostly white, to be destroyed by 80,000 people who 90% of them are on welfare, ripping us off. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There is all across the country. We could blame the blue states, but I'm sure there's fraud in the red states. Now, here's my problem. Before we let Karoline go, I'm going to just say this. Where's the perp walks? When they started Doge, right? Who got arrested? Who's going to jail for this? Let me tell you, I'm going to start it in a second. I said this, like, share, and subscribe. I'm just kind of ranting, Happy New Year and all that. I don't care if they arrest 50,000 Somalis. I really don't. All the ones who, when they say it's just a few, that's a lie, right? Because every parent who signed their kid up to get money for the autism, they're guilty of a crime. But if not one administrator from the people who are supposed to oversee this gets arrested or goes to jail, do we really care as American citizens if they put 1,000 Somalis in jail, kick them out, and let the people who ran these programs unfreaking with no oversight just walk free? Aren't we tired of that? I hate to say this because it's not necessarily about race, but we know a lot of these organizations at the top are run by, I'm not even going to go to race. Who's in charge? If Governor Walz is not in handcuffs, are you going to be satisfied? If Ellison is not in handcuffs, are you really going to be satisfied? If all the administrators who quashed the whistleblowers for years, none of these guys get indicted, I don't give a shit what Karoline is going to get ready to say. I don't believe her until I see somebody other than a Somali go down and go to jail. I mean, is it just me? This is not a racial thing in terms of because Somalis have brown skin. Hell with that. I don't give a shit if 1,000 of them go to jail who deserve to go to jail. How about the judge who let a guy convict a man and woman convicted of $7.5 million fraud with a jury trial that convicted them in like an hour or two, throw out the verdict for some bullshit reason? Aren't you mad? You say this is Minnesota, right? I don't give a shit if it's Minnesota. It's all across the country. I pay a lot of, I can't. I worked for 38 years making a decent salary. I had to pay over $1 million something worth of taxes over my lifetime of working. I swear, how come we're not mad? It's just the Somalis' turn in front of the congregation. But listen to me. We have no governors over our money. None. Across the country. It's a tip of the iceberg. In California, they had this rail system, right? That they were supposed to, a high-speed rail system. Let me tell you, the Chinese would have had that shit done in less than a year, okay? It was supposed to be commissioned, I think in like 2010 or 11. They spent around $6 billion. They don't even have the trestles up. $6 billion. How come we're not mad? We're just like fucking sheep, man. All of us paying taxes all the time. And people are stealing us, robbing us blind. We could get mad at all the Somalis we want. They didn't set up the system. They're just using it. They can't even build a country. Their country is a shithole. But they come here with all the stuff we have to offer. And they rip us off in a generation. It's it's absurd. And we're just walking around fat. I'm fat like a motherfucker, but fat, dumb, and happy. Listen, I called my insurance company today, right? And it's supposed to be the cheapest where I live. They went up on my insurance 25% from last year. And I found out because I own a vintage Charger that I still have under and it's, what, they racially profiled a Charger. My taxes, the taxes just went up. My property taxes went up, right? Just when they were supposed to give us some relief. So they hit it with some additional costs. We have a new governor. Where I live, there's a new mayor. They were fighting over tax, and all of a sudden, my tax bill goes up 10%. And I'm going to say mine, I would imagine I'm not alone. And then when you see I'm in New Jersey, right? But if there's this kind of rampant criminal activity in Minnesota, you don't think it's going on in New Jersey? New Jersey is not a big state, but we got 8,050 damn townships, and each one of them have a goddamn mayor, police force, and all. It's just bullshit. It's crazy. I'm just ranting. And we're all walking fat, dumb, and happy down the slaughter line just because we could find a way to scrape together to keep our lives the way we want it. I work for the federal government. In the Department of Defense, they threw money at us and made a career out of it, put my kids through college, I got my crib. But after I'm finished paying for it, I still got to kick out a whole bunch of money. Well, property taxes are probably unconstitutional. But guess what? None of us as a group get together and try to challenge that shit. Why are we paying these property taxes that, somebody could take all the equity out of your home because you fell on hard times after you finish paying 30 years on a goddamn place? And when you finish paying for it, right, you're in a fixed income category. And if they keep raising your goddamn taxes unconditionally, right? In Chicago, I just found out, and I'm not in Chicago, they got like 5 or 6 different boards. And each one of those boards can independently raise taxes on property. The school board, the alderman board, this board, that board, right? So your tax bill it goes up based on each one of these freaking organizations deciding that they need more of your money. And then you put that on the backdrop of the mayor and all the sanctuary cities where you see, right? We sat down here. I'm going to just keep going, right? We sat down here and we watched the blue states, and I don't even want to get into the politics of it, but this is what happened. We watched the blue states consider themselves sanctuary cities. And we saw the Republicans sit there fat, dumb, and happy And if you think about it, isn't some states declaring themselves sanctuary cities so they could flood their asses with illegal immigrants? Isn't that unconstitutional? It should not be challenged. If a rogue liberal judge can tell the president, you know what, you can't deport an illegal alien like Obrego Garcia. The Republicans couldn't come up and block, enjoin the states from becoming sanctuary cities. I mean, sanctuary states. At least get them wrapped up to where this shit had to go to the Supreme Court. I said, wait a minute. You guys are in open rebellion against the federal government. We're not going to let that shit happen. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Argue this shit in court. Let this shit be adjudicated at the highest levels. Because I think sanctuary cities are unconstitutional. So these mayors spent billions of dollars on people who haven't shed one fucking drop of blood for our country. And they took the money away from Americans who fucking toiled their whole lives for generations and put them in neighborhoods where they can't even afford the shit that they have. How could that shit be fair? It's crazy. So we're going to listen to Karoline Leavitt come up and say her shit, right? But we haven't seen nobody go to jail. Nobody's going to jail. If they could throw all the Somalis in jail they want, but they don't organize this shit. They don't manage the infrastructure. Americans do. And how can this happen? How can that happen? It's crazy. So we're gonna let and don't get me started on the Epstein files. I'm gonna say one thing about them, right? We have all of these survivors. They went through a terrible turmoil and shit, right? Don't they have the names of the people already who assaulted them? Don't they already know who those people are? And how come they're not being indicted? Where's the grand jury? So they're not going to release a grand jury record with the person's name if they weren't indicted. They can't do that. So when the stupid president, he was stupid. He should have never promised anything with the Epstein files. If I release 1 million files, right? It's just bear with me for a second. All of you guys putting shit in this. We don't have to like me on all this. If I agree to give you, right, a file, 10 pages, 25 paragraphs, whatever, of information. However, every page has 20% of it blacked out, 5% of it blacked out. Do you give a shit about what you could read? The only thing you're going to care about is what's blacked out. So Pam Bondi, sends out all of these redacted fucking files. And we're human beings. We don't give a shit what we can read. We want to know what's under the black ink. I mean, that's just human nature. You don't have to be a scholar to know that's how the mind fucking works. So if this whole thing is a disaster of their own making. Anyway, so I'm just going crazy, right? So my girl Karoline Leavitt's going to come up here and say her piece about what she thinks about what's going on in Somalia. But think about it. Or not, and I call it Somalia because you know what? Minnesota might as well be Somalia because they took the shit over. But they're just a symptom to a larger problem that, I think Americans need to be mad at. Not Black Americans, not white Americans, fucking Americans. Tax-paying Americans. We should be pissed. So here we go. Let me shut the fuck up and let Karoline say what she's going to say. It's crazy. Absolute crazy.
Welcome back. Right now, Health and Human Services pausing its annual $185 million child care payments to Minnesota because this massive fraud investigation is growing.
But Governor Tim Walz still pointing blame at everyone else, posting, quote, "This is Trump's long game. We've spent years cracking down on fraudsters. It's a serious issue, but this has been his plan all along. He's politicizing the issue to defund."
Now, listen, this guy's an idiot, right? But anybody who calls this man an idiot over the fact that he's one of the most dangerous men in the United States is a fool. Because calling him an idiot dismisses what he's done to Minnesota. And can you imagine if he would have been able to implement his full plan as vice president? As vice president. You know what I'm saying? We're on the precipice, man, of disaster as Americans. And listen, I'm a black man talking to you fucking guys out there, right? Because I get a lot of backlash because I'm not some flaming ass liberal, right? I'm an American. If America falls, your skin color is not going to matter. You know, it's not. Everything we've built, our families bled for in the family. You know, all the men in my family were veterans. You know, I didn't have to go because of my age and when shit went down, right? But all my fathers, my grandfathers, my uncles, they're all veterans. No matter how bad it was, Jim Crow and all that shit, they went to fight for this freaking country. And we're letting people come in and just do what the fuck they want to do. And this asshole, Tim Walz, almost became vice president. That's how close we are to the end. I'm serious. I mean, it's something that we should really get mad. We can't let people like him back in office. Anyway.
Programs that help Minnesotans.
White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt joining us now. Karoline, thank you for being here. Happy New Year's Eve. Let's jump in right now with Governor Walz blasting President Trump and the Trump administration, saying that this is all about politicizing this massive fraud that keeps growing that we are learning about. You see, that is what you saw from Governor Walz, saying this is Trump's long game. We've spent years cracking down on fraudsters. It's a serious issue, but this has been his plan all along. Your reaction?
Governor Walz is completely incompetent. He always has been, and President Trump has long called him out for his incompetence and his poor leadership in the great state of Minnesota. I want to commend Nick Shirley for his incredible video in real journalism that went viral this past week. He epitomizes what new media looks like, and that's exactly why we at the White House, under President Trump's direction, have embraced new media journalists like Nick Shirley. We've welcomed them in to the White House press pool. We invited Nick Shirley to brief the President of the United States.
You know what? Karoline is right about Nick Shirley and all the other podcasters and the guys who are, they have their own biases, but they're free from corporate interest. But again, it's a mistake to call, it sounds good. It makes you feel good to call Walz an idiot because he is, but he's a useful idiot. He's the governor. With all the powers of a governor, and we're seeing what he's doing. It's just not by mistake that this shit is doing this in Minnesota. It's not. It's part of a larger plan, and he's a useful idiot in the plan. So to underestimate a guy who spent all his time in China and all of those kind of things, it's a mistake. You can't underestimate the usefulness of this idiot. You just can't, because, he's always got some other scheme, and his deflection is just a reflection of the fact that he's not going to go out peacefully. He needs to be investigated. He needs to be in front of not only that bullshit Congress where they throw stupid questions at him. They need to piece together some kind of charge or put him in front of a grand jury to see if they can indict his ass. That's what they need to do.
states at an Antifa roundtable earlier this year. And this fraud in Governor Walz's state in Minnesota is something the Trump administration has been working on since day one. And since Nick Shirley's journalism really brought this issue further to light, we have surged resources across the board to the state. So I want your audience to understand this is a top priority for the administration. The Department of Justice, as we speak, is continuing to execute search warrants and subpoenas. People will be in handcuffs as a result of the fraud that Governor Walz has allowed to occur for many, many years. The Department of Homeland Security is conducting door-to-door investigations on the ground at potential fraud sites. And they're also, of course, conducting continued deportations of illegal aliens in.
All right. The deportation's fine. Get the hell on. Listen, Karoline, I have a whole bunch of videos covering you. And the one thing I'm going to say is that when I hear you speak, a lot of it I like, okay? But what happened to all the fraud from the early days with Doge? Who got arrested? That's the point. All of this is bullshit unless we see people doing a perp walk. So when you say people will be indicted and all this other horse shit, hey, Bigfoot Alicia James from New York, she did the same shit that Trump has done, but Joe can't even find people to indict her. They put up a woman who shouldn't have been in charge of it without looking at pulling all the I's and dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. And so they gave her an out. And I'm just saying, you guys are talking, where were you guys when they set up these sanctuary cities? When? And states. That shit is unconstitutional. When they're in open rebellion against the federal government, not unlike the slave states were back in the day. And we've heard fat ass Pritzker and Johnson say some shit that if I match what they said against the federal government up against what sedition says by definition, they should be indicted. There should be enough to say you guys are obstructing, and the federal government's work at the state level, and that's sedition. Not just the seditious six and what they did. How come they ain't in handcuffs? You guys talk this big game. How come you haven't got rid of the filibuster? To codify some of these things, like the mutilation of children, right? It went through the House, but they say there's no way it's going to get through the Senate. Why? Because you need 60 votes. Get rid of the filibuster. That one should be codified. That's who gives a shit if you go nuclear option.
Minnesota's communities. We're also not afraid to use denaturalization. That's a tool at the president and the Secretary of State's disposal, and it's one this administration has previously used before. I know the Health and Human Services Department has also announced we are cutting off all child care funding to the state of Minnesota until we get to the bottom of this fraud. The Department of Labor is investigating their unemployment insurance program. The Department of USDA Agriculture Secretary Rollins weeks ago sent a letter to Governor Walz demanding he turn over every single name of SNAP recipients on the books in Minnesota. And the Minnesota Attorney General actually sued the Trump administration for that. What are they hiding? Our entire administration is working around the clock to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, you said a lot there, right? Denaturalization. Okay, so I'm going to just pick on one person. People are saying we should deport Ilhan Omar. Forget about deporting her, okay? Just kick her out of Congress, right? Because denaturalization of a person is going to be tied up in court for years. But the legislative branch can find a way to kick her ass out of Congress because she is as far as I'm concerned, allegedly, I think she's a traitor to the United States. She hates this country. How is she in government? How is she sitting in a seat of power in government for how she feels about this country? And let me say it, she hates white people. She said white men are the biggest threat to the United States. I mean, there's millions of you fucking guys out there. How could y'all look at her and let her just all the blood, sweat, and tears that got this country where you guys got it. She's coming in from a dead fucking country, telling you that you're the worst. It's just crazy, man. So I hear you talking, but nobody's going to jail.
And President Trump is not going to let Governor Walz off the hook.
So, Karoline, just very quickly to clarify, you covered a lot there, but you mentioned the denaturalization. House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, a congressman from Minnesota, has called for all of the Somalis that are convicted of fraud to have their citizenship revoked. We know so far, according to Pam Bondi, that 98 of the people charged, 85 are of Somali descent. Does President Trump want those Somalis to have their citizenship revoked if convicted of fraud?
Absolutely. And it's something the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of State is currently looking at right now. It's something this administration has already done. And we know that there are liberal activist judges across the country who will try to block and tackle this administration from pursuing justice at every turn. But that's not going to stop the president and his entire cabinet by acting on behalf of law-abiding, tax-paying citizens in the state of Minnesota and in states across the country who have been ripped off by people who abused our immigration system, came to our country, do not love our country or respect our values, and now have been ripping off and stealing money from law-abiding Americans. This administration is not going to tolerate it. And again, this is a whole of government effort. We've surged resources. As you pointed out, the Department of Justice has already charged and prosecuted nearly 100 people. In fact, some of the buildings and some of the sites that Nick Shirley exposed in that video are under current investigation by the Department of Justice. One of those sites, the Midway building, resulted in 13 defendants already being charged earlier this year under the leadership of our Attorney General and President Trump. So that is definitely going to continue.
Yeah, okay. Listen, all right, but the people who will the organizations allowed this to happen. Again, I don't care, and maybe I do. You could arrest 1,000 Somalis, 10,000 of them. I don't care. You could come out of the country, whatever. If nobody in the administration of Minnesota, and let's quite frankly, white people, go to jail, up into including will get in trouble, have to go to court, up into and including the governor, and it's not only white. Ellison is involved. They had him on tape, talking to making this backward deal. Sounds like they tried to put Trump in jail for that kind of tape down in Fulton County. Until we see perp walks, Karoline, this is just all bullshit, man. It's all bullshit. You can, like I said, you can arrest all the Somalis you want. I think it's just the denaturalization shit is a smokescreen, and they could open a whole different can of worms. Believe me. But if they're criminal, lock their asses up in the shittiest prisons that we can find. And then find a way that they could never be in any way, shape, form, or fashion near taxpayers' money again, whether you deport them or not. Let's focus on the shit that you can do, as opposed to going through the courts and wasting all of this precious time and money trying to denaturalize people, which will open up a can of worms I think you don't want to reopen. Ilhan Omar, yeah, sounds good. Let's deport her. But what we should be focusing on is kicking her fucking ass out of Congress. That's what we need to do.
Karoline, to wrap up this topic, it's a hot one right now, of course, especially on social media, people following it. We're so happy to hear the pausing of those payments to the child care facilities in Minnesota as all this is sorted out. Are other states on your radar? There's been a lot of rumblings about similar things happening in other states, Ohio also being mentioned. What's next, and what other states are you going to be looking at shortly?
Oh, yes. Right now, Minnesota is at the top of the list, but we know there has been massive fraud in blue states across this country. Look at California, look at New York. These states will all be under investigation and consideration as far as this administration is concerned. And again, just to remind your audience, cutting waste, fraud, and abuse from the federal bureaucracy is something that this president and administration has been focused on from day one. Look at USAID. It was a corrupt program that this administration administration shut down at the Department of State to save the American taxpayer money. And so we're not going to stop doing that. And anybody who has been ripping off American taxpayers will be held to the fullest extent of the law as long.
All right, Karoline. So who from USAID who allowed all of this fraud to go on has been perp walked? Nobody committed any crimes in USAID because the American legislator allowed them to go rogue and give money out for circumcisions in Angola or some shit like that. No, of course, the money has been laundered for something. So nobody committed any criminal activities. Who's the perp? Who's going to jail from USAID? Where? So we're just talking bullshit, man. We are. And, I love you, Karoline. You know what? I like the way you came out, gangbusters, saying all the shit that you say, because, some of it is true. But until we see people in handcuffs losing everything for the dastardly deeds they've done, it's just words. It's just words.
Long as this president is in charge.
Karoline, moving on just a little bit, there are a list of accomplishments by the president so far that really go beyond a list. It's just everywhere in the country. But on the wall over here we have, illegal border crossings. Basically, the border is closed. The GDP has grown. Inflation has gone down. Of course, they passed the big, beautiful bill. And then brokering peace around the world, two big ones, obviously Israel and Iran. And of course, the ending of DEI and federal programs. When I look at this list, the one thing I see is that only one of them is codified in legislation. President Trump can't do all this on his own, but he's kind of doing it on his own. Moving into 2060, expect to get any help from Congress.
Well, the president has a great relationship with Congress. He has a great working relationship with Speaker Johnson, Senate Majority Leader Thune. The president's been very clear he wants to do away with the filibuster so Republicans can really play tough and smart and pass as much good legislation ahead of the midterms, but over the course of the president's next 3 years in office, so we can truly and fully save America before President Trump departs in 2028. But as for the next year, the American people have so much to look forward to. The president will continue to build off of his historic accomplishments. The border will continue to stay shut. Mass deportations will continue. The largest tax cuts in American history for middle-class Americans that President Trump signed into law last year will be going into effect this year. So hardworking Americans will start to see that money going back into their pockets. We know core inflation right now is at a 5-year record low. The full weight of President Trump's economic agenda, everything that he and his economic team have been doing over the course of the last year, is really going to come to fruition this year. And I think you're going to see an economic boom. You're going to continue to see a crackdown on crime in states across the country. The president is just laser focused around the clock. And I've seen this firsthand. It's really remarkable how hard he works to make our country safer and more prosperous. And I think the best is yet to come in 2026.
Karoline, best is yet to come for America. Best is also yet to come for you. We're so happy to congratulate you. Soon to be a mom of 2. We're so happy for you. What can you tell us, and what is it going to look like for you to be a mom of 2 this summer?
Well, thank you so much. My husband and I are so excited to grow our family and to add a girl into the mix. I had my son during the midst of the 2024 campaign and got right back to work. So I'm very grateful to President Trump and our Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, who have really fostered a pro-family working environment at the White House. Almost all of my West Wing colleagues have young children. So we're all raising our families together and working for the president. It is a very busy season of life, but it's a lot of fun. And I look forward to doing it all over again in 2026.
That is amazing. And Karoline, please tell your husband, take it from me and Joey, being a girl dad is the very best thing
Absolutely
ever.
it is.
Thank you, Karoline. Happy New
Year. Again, it sounds like I'm yelling at her. I agree with all the accomplishments. On Monday on the Black Man Unfiltered Network, I put the link in the chat that I'll be doing a show, the Trump administration, on what they did over the last year, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'm going to start with the ugly first. And I'll finish with the good, because some of it is good. But this gentleman over here on the left of this screen, whatever his name is again, he's absolutely right. This shit don't mean nothing unless it gets codified in law. And I don't think there's any, the the leader of the Senate doesn't have any chops about talking about getting rid of the filibuster. So I mean, let's just cue the scenario. Even if the Republicans keep the Senate, if they lose the House for the remainder 2 years of the Trump administration, all we're going to hear about is them trying to impeach him for shit that's not even impeachable defenses. Everything will be cluttered. Now, he might still be able to continue to deport the people who need to be deported, but all his executive orders are going to just sit there. Just sit there, okay? So they got to do something drastic now. So it sounds good, but here's one case in point. One, we got to get if the Supreme Court gets rid of the birthright citizenship, at first I was saying, okay, as a black man, it was good that came in on the 14th Amendment because that's how black people became citizens of the United States. But everybody's piggybacking on it. Right now, it's a beacon for people to give us all of their dregs of society and just get a woman pregnant so she could have a baby here to tether them to this country without whether they want to assimilate here or not. That shit's got to go away. That incentive actually has to go away. If we want America to be a sovereign nation among people who believe in the flag, the red, white, and blue, and a system of government that we have, we got to be able to codify something. Supreme Court might give us a break on the birthright citizenship, maybe, but the gender affirming care bill that passed the House, that shit needs to pass the Senate, and it's not going to do it until they get rid of the filibuster. We got to protect the children against these demons, right? So I don't know. I'm just ranting. It's a new year, and politics is everywhere, so we can't avoid it. We can't ignore it. We have to live through it, and we have to survive no matter who's in charge. But we got to make sure the leaders, whether you trust them or not, at least have something you can latch on to. And unfettered liberalism is absolutely the most destructive thing that has happened to the United States, especially on the extreme left that runs the Democratic Party. So with that, I'm going to shut my mouth. Happy New Year, everybody. And man, you know what I'm saying? Have a blessed year. It's early 2026. Maybe this year, Main Street and Wall Street will come closer together based on some of the things that Trump is doing. And, maybe a little less bullshit in the news. And perp walks, please. People who are committing crimes in high places need to go to jail. And let me say, and maybe you guys can help me with this, all of those Epstein survivors, they know who touched them. You don't need 1 million documents. They know. How come, like, if you're a regular person who's been assaulted, you go to the police station, you accuse your person who offended you, they do an investigation of the person you name. That person, if there's enough evidence, then a DA, right, convenes a grand jury and then indicts the dude if they have enough credible evidence. So we're saying that with the Epstein shit, only Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were the only two people that had enough evidence to actually go to the trial and jail for. Can that really be true? So what are these millions of documents going to do for you if the people who were the victims won't release the names of the people who touched them? You can't ferret all of that shit through 1 million documents that's redacted. Either accuse the people who abuse you in public or not. So they got a whole bunch of lawyers involved telling them not to say anything. They got ladies doing these goddamn shows and not mentioning seeing she's a victim. Okay, grant you. Who did it? Who else was involved? If you're the victim, you know who else was involved. Name the goddamn names. And if you ain't doing that, I mean, why are we going through all of this? Anyway, heart pain, marriage, politics, and sports. Happy New Year, everybody. Let's keep it going.